Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Forward Progress with Paulo Salgueiro Jr. Today I'm joined with Worcester State University's head football coach, Adam Peloquin.
Correct.
Coach,
Correct.
how are you? Thanks
Very
for
good,
joining
Paul.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. It's raining outside, so we are in Worcester State's basketball court. I don't know if you can still see this rain on me, but it's all right. Coach, so basically our show, Forward Progress, we talk about leadership, we talk about coaching, and just everyday life, essentially. So just for some of our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I am obviously the head football coach here at Worcester State. I've been in that role since November of 2019. I've been coaching football here at Worcester since fall of 2012, started immediately after graduating, and been fortunate enough to stay in the game since then. So, you know, I'm the only full-time coach here for the football program, so I'm doing everything. I'm, running the weight room. I'm obviously directing practices and games. I also am the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, involved in special teams. As the head coach, you always have to be involved in every facet, but I take on as many of those responsibilities as I can here.
Absolutely. Now, how has it been your 3 years as a head coach? Because you also coached during a COVID year, right?
Yeah, so November of 19, I get the job, and then, 4 months later, the world shuts down. So we missed my first full fall actually running a program was this last year, fall of 21. So, it was a rocky transition, to say the least. We had a lot of change, as everybody did with COVID, and there was a lot to navigate for our players. So it's been a long road, even though I started in 2020 fall, I really look at fall 2021 as year zero for our program because we had to hit reset entirely on who we were and what we were doing. And now we just wrapped up fall 22, and we're building from there.
What was your expectations landing the head coach position, and that when you finally started coaching in practices and finally started playing games, what was your expectation going into it? Was it everything you already expected, anything you learned?
Yeah, I mean, you learn that heavy lies the crown, I think as an assistant coach, you don't fully understand how many decisions you have to make for the program. And it's not just about what play you're going to call. It's about handling cultural issues within the locker room, discipline issues with teams, and more on positive vibe, just the little minutia of planning, from meals to travel to clothes we're going to get the team. So there's just a million decisions that go into being that head coach role. I was involved in some of those decisions as an assistant coach, but ultimately, now the final say lies with me. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it's been fun. I've really enjoyed those little details in the day-to-day management of the program and trying to build something with these players and coaches. It's been fun.
So, Coach, you mentioned, managing players and athletes, men with like cultural differences, and we've talked about with different coaches about managing players and managing athletes. How is it when you have either a couple players? I've always said it, and I'll still say it this episode, but I've always felt on a football team or any team, it's not uncommon that you're going to have players not get along with one another, but they always work together. So what is it when you have those players that may have differences with one another? How do you navigate that as a coach? How do you manage players, and at the same time, you're molding them to be, young men? What's those conversations like as a coach?
Well, at the end of the day, everybody in that locker room has the same goal, right? We want to win football games. There are a lot of individual goals as well. One guy wants to score, one guy wants to start, right? One guy wants to get so many plays in, and you have to manage those individual performances as well. But really, we all are trying to win football games as a team. So I think when you have players who have some differences, it's a heart-to-heart conversation with them, as a man, and say, hey, you don't have to be friends with everybody, but if you're a member of the team, we all have to be chasing the same thing together. So it's about coming in and doing that work. And if, there's a guy that you don't get along with, you don't have to, again, be his friend outside of the 9 to 5, if you will, of the program. Now, that being said, we spend significant time team building. We feel that for us to really succeed, we have to develop that locker room culture and make sure that everybody is, maybe not best friends, but we're all cordial, getting along together, and here for the same purpose. So we have, I think, developed that because we were at point zero, like I said, when I took over in COVID, and now we're at the point where this is one of the best, this past fall is one of the best locker rooms that we've had. So it's challenging at times, like I said, because there are so many different individual goals and dreams that these guys have, but can you coalesce them into one team? That's the challenge of every year.
And how does that play a role in, at a D3 level, or any level for that matter, prioritizing and explaining the importance of, being a student athlete, right? Teaching about their academics. How does that play in a role as you as a coach, and how do you, embed that into your philosophy with players?
I make it very clear to the team day one that my goal here, my really only purpose here is to help make them be the best people that they can be. As you said, we're a Division III program. There's no scholarship money involved. The NFL is, possible, but it's really not coming calling for our guys, So we have to develop people that can graduate on time and go and contribute to society as an employee, as a father, a husband, a son, a brother, and continue to be great people. So I always keep that at the forefront of what we do, and we're stressing academics. We try to be involved in the community, and we're trying to develop that person holistically, not just as an athlete.
And a huge part that I probably learned as I got older too was the recruiting aspect as a coach. So can you tell us a little bit about either traditional freshman students coming in, and then specifically like transfers, dealing with transfer students, and how is that difficult as a coach in terms of getting them, teaching your philosophy when they might be coming in either not, either a spring semester for spring ball or during a fall or something like that?
Recruiting is the lifeblood of any program. You gotta keep bringing in the talent, players that you can develop, players that will buy into the culture and help you become, a championship team. I think with freshmen, it's easier to assimilate them into what we're doing than the transfers. Freshmen come in, blank slate, wide-eyed, and generally much more receptive to what's going to be fed to them culturally. I think that it's also easier to vet freshmen than it is transfers because you're recruiting them longer and you have more interaction with their high school coach, teachers, guidance counselors, whoever's in that circle, so that you can get a good sense of who that person is. Transfers, and I was a transfer myself actually. My freshman year of college, I went away to school and I transferred back to Worcester State and graduated here. So, I'm always open to transfers. I think that they're vital, especially in today's day and age with the transfer portal, and it's a vital part of any recruiting process. But you do have to investigate, the why behind the transfer. Was there an issue with the previous program? Are they looking to get closer to home? Is it a financial issue? So you have to do some investigative work to find out why is that transfer happening? Is that person going to be a good fit for you? Whereas a freshman is a little bit more moldable.
Now, when you're looking at, or recruiting rather, and for some of maybe the athletes watching this, in your opinion, what makes a good athlete either coming into college, or then once they're here too, kind of what makes them a good athlete, or what makes them, I guess, marketable for a team, if you will?
Talent is one thing, right? All coaches, we want to put on a highlight tape and see that we have a guy that can play and play well. But more importantly, I think, is for me, when I'm vetting a freshman, I want to know about his character. I want to know how he is in the weight room. Is he a good leader? Is he a good citizen at the school? That's the more important things to me than his talent, because now I know I have a guy who I can probably get to fit into our culture here. It can be a good citizen of our program now. And you win with good people. Yes, you need talent, right? But you're going to win first with good people and developing that culture first. So through the recruiting process, can we find that guy who, not everybody's a 4.0, but he's committed to his academics. He is maybe not a captain, but he's a vocal guy. His teammates respect him, and he works hard, on and off the field. If we can get a guy that does those things, we're going to be successful here as a program because of that. And then once a player's here, does he buy in? Is he coachable? We find that a lot of younger people these days, I think, are less receptive to criticism. You have to deliver that in a certain way, and you have to have a certain relationship with the player before you can do that criticism. But the reality of coaching and being an athlete is that you're going to get critiqued on something at some point. A technique that you need to improve, an assignment that was missed, and the coachable guys we find will succeed more.
So, Coach, you mentioned you want to see, what type of leadership certain players have when they're coming into your program. In your opinion, what makes a good leader, and can that be taught, or is it just you're just born with good leadership?
I think you do have a lot of guys that are born with some innate ability to lead, but it's also a choice, right? There are some traits that people can choose to practice and develop and absolutely grow as a leader. To me, some of the traits we look for first is language. Are you a positive language user, or do you create a lot of negativity with the words you speak? Are you building people up, or are you bringing them down? I think a leader generally, I'm not saying you can't push guys and again, critique people, but you need to be building people up. How's your energy level? That's the other one. You're an energy giver or you're an energy taker, right? Those are the two things we talk with our team. So the energy givers are the people that naturally other teammates will look up to. They're going to gravitate towards. You're more charismatic, and people will be drawn to you. So if you're an energy giver, you have some leadership ability right there. Do you maintain a positive attitude, especially in the face of adversity? How do you handle that? If you're a player who can continue to work, and continue to try to develop yourself and develop the team and build, and not let some adversity set you back and drag you down, you have some positive leadership within you. So those are some of the traits that I think we can develop. We can easily look for and find out in the recruiting process by talking to a coach, by interacting with that person ourselves. But those are traits that anybody can really hone and become a leader. I think being an offensive lineman especially was very helpful. As an offensive lineman, you have no stats, right? You're a servant-based player. You're there to protect the quarterback, to block for the running back. And I think as a coach, the best coaches are servant leaders. We're here for the players. I'm here for my assistant coaches. Everything I do is to help them be successful and put them in the best position possible to win. So right away, just being an offensive lineman by nature, I think I was able to develop that sense of others first and putting others first for the program. And then, in general, any player walks away with some traits, just toughness, perseverance. Again, I think being a lineman especially, and every play it's a physically demanding position. Every play you're sacrificing your body for other people. And the traits you learn by playing that position, I think, translate well to being a leader and being able to do the work and persevere through some tough times and get people to try to follow you.
So are you pumped that Jeff Saturday is head coach?
It's interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I loved his energy when I've heard him speak. He's been around that organization a little bit, right, as a player, now as a consultant, I believe. But it'll be interesting from right from the TV studio into the sidelines. We'll see how that does.
On the line of scrimmage.
5 players playing in a very tight space have to all be on the same page. You're communicating your blocking patterns, defensive movements, who's picking up who, and you got to keep that guy behind you standing up straight. It's a challenging position. And your average fan, they put on a game on a Saturday or Sunday, and they just block the guy in front of you. It's a lot harder than that because the guy in front of you is generally exceptionally athletic and very strong, and he can be a tough guy to manage. And over the course of a game, it's easy to get tired when you're a big guy, right? So O-linemen themselves are exceptional athletes, but the communication piece is critical to that position, critical. You have to be on the same page or else somebody's going to get hit in the backfield and it hurts. It hurts the team.
And my coach always used to say, a film doesn't lie. So when you look at the film afterwards, they're going to have questions for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we come in as a staff on Sundays, day after games, and inevitably we're finding things at all positions, not just up front. But, it just seems that when a mistake happens up front, it is bigger than when it happens elsewhere sometimes. Because you're usually going to end in a negative play offensively. Or defensively, you could be giving up a big play if a D lineman's not where you're supposed to be. So it all comes out in the film, practice film, game film, and we film everything as most college programs do. You gotta watch that film and try to coach the guys up to get better. Overall, offensive, big picture perspective, it wasn't that hard a transition to become the offensive coordinator. You know, I'm always trying to learn wrinkles and more scheme and more nuances we can teach on certain elements to the offense. But that piece was an easier transition. Transitioning from coaching offensive line to quarterbacks, that was very different, completely different skill set, obviously. And for me, having been an offensive lineman, you know, I don't have a good arm. My quarterbacks will tell you that. I throw it like a baseball half the time. But even though maybe I can't do it myself, you know, through study and through understanding of what I want done on the field, I can teach it, I can coach it. And, you know, our players have been receptive to that. It's an ongoing learning process for me to learn more about quarterback play. But it was a transition, for sure. But, you know, through the studying and refining what we do every year, I think I've been able to help these guys get better.
And Coach, in your opinion, what makes a good coach?
A good coach is somebody that gives. You have to give. You have to give for your players. They have to know that you care. Through all of that, you're going to give them your energy, your time, your effort, etc. And you have to have a consistent presence with them. Not just building a relationship, but also accountability with them as well. And if you can be consistent with the team and the players know that you care and that you're invested in them as people, let alone as a football player, you're going to develop good bonds with the team that will help you through the season. That's what I think it comes down to. You know, you got to know your X's and O's, great, in whatever sport it might be. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to build bonds with the players and get them to play for you. So a constant presence helps you with that. You know, baseball, you can have a hitter that, you know, hits all the home runs and wins the games, right? You can have a pitcher that goes on and he's lights out. Basketball, you can have one guy that drops 50 points, right? Football, our players are only successful if their teammates are playing together, right? You have to rely as a quarterback on the offensive line, on the receivers, on the running back to block, to run, to catch, whatever it might be. So it's a game that really forms deep bonds because it's so team-based. And I think that, you know, you have the locker room aspect as well, where these guys are spending a lot of time together off the field. I think more so than other teams. You know, we meet every day. We have lifts, you know, throughout the week. And those bonds are formed throughout that adversity that we put them through. And it lasts. It lasts a long time. I just coming in now today to Worcester State for this recording. You know, I had a call from one of my college friends who's in coaching, and we talk once a week. And you know, it's great to have those relationships. So, you know, we try to again develop those team bonds here throughout the year and let our guys find those friends for life.
Can you tell us a little bit, you know, the differences between managing your athletes and what it's like managing a staff? Are they similar? Are they different? Is one difficult than the other? Kind of tell us a little bit about what's that like?
It's definitely different, I think. You know, the athletes are in some ways easy because they're so excited to be on that field playing football. And, you know, you have to manage some egos out there because not everybody's going to get to score a touchdown. But at the end of the day, I think our work at developing the full team bond and being able to just let those guys play, I think that to me is easy. And there's a lot of eyes on all the athletes, you know. The coaches can be more difficult, you know, where you're trying to get these guys to bring a certain energy on the field. You're trying to get guys to learn the X's and O's of the system, to be a recruiter, to build the bonds with the team. And as an assistant coach, you have different relationships with the players than the head coach does. So, you know, some guys need to get coached up on how to do that. Some guys maybe aren't as naturally comfortable at building those relationships, but maybe they're great with the X's and O's. Or it might be vice versa. They're a great people person. They're going to be a great recruiter. They can connect with people easily, but they need to be coached up on the X's and O's piece. So there's, I think, bigger, or not bigger, but there's a lot more that I have to coach the coaches on than I do the players. The players, you know, you got to learn your plays and go out there and execute, and learn your techniques and go out there and execute. And now the coaches, you know, some guys we're trying to do things that they may not be comfortable doing. These guys here at Worcester State are all part-time, so they're coming in from a day job, and they're showing up at 3 in the afternoon after working all day, and we have to get them to get that energy up for the team. So that presents some challenges. But at the end of the day, like I said earlier about the players, we're all on the same page in that we're trying to help these guys become great men, go win some football games. So the coaches that I've had here have worked tremendously hard for me, and I appreciate what they do because I would not be able to, run this program without them. We've had a great group.
One thing I'm curious about too is I've always thought some of the best coaching moments are on the sideline, right? Whether it's at a practice or at a game. Can you tell me a little bit, we talked briefly about it in terms of players' receptiveness of whether it be a coaching yelling or a coaching talking, or everyone has their different style. What's that like? Is it difficult when you see a player learns different from another player, or they're less receptive talking a certain way? What's that process like as a coach dealing with that?
The players and how they learn, right? That it comes up every day. In practices, it's a little bit easier to manage because you have less urgent setting in which you have to make a change with this player. On the sideline on game day, you have to be very mindful who you're talking to and how you're talking to them to make sure that you're delivering the information in a way that they can receive it. So that can be hectic on game day. Just your brain has to switch depending on who you're speaking to. When you have a player that is not open to receiving that criticism, maybe, again, I think practices are different because it's a less urgent atmosphere. We try to practice, make them as intense as possible for the players, but at the end of the day, we can stop, pull a kid aside, talk to him one-on-one, and then continue with practice. In the games, we have to get these changes in now, and we have to deliver that information to the players very rapidly sometimes, and obviously it gets a very emotional and heated environment. So I think, I stress with our coaches that we have to not be emotionless, but we have to be able to stay calm and deliver the information to the players in a way that doesn't accelerate them. If a guy is coming off after he gets a bad penalty and he's very emotional about it, how do we calm him down and then move on to the next play? How do we make the changes we need to make when maybe they're still thinking about that 3 plays previous that there was the mistake made? So there are moments where it gets heated, sure, but can we as coaches be not authoritarian but authoritative, command the situation, and help our players move on to that next play? Help them receive the changes that need to be made so we can go out and continue to succeed on the field. It's a challenge. Well, from the players' perspective, here at Worcester State, we play most of our games Saturdays. So our players are off Sundays. We come in and we lift Monday morning early before they have classes, and then they go throughout their day. For the players, we start meetings with them about 2:30 in the afternoon on a Monday. We're in film for an hour to an hour and a half. We're on the field for practice after that for about an hour and a half. And then our players have a team study hall we do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we have meetings with the players every day prior to practice. Some of them are quick as the week goes on and we feel pretty comfortable with the game plan maybe. Those are quick 5 to 10 minute meetings sometimes. Some can be more expansive, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. There can be a lot to review as the week goes on. And then our players are also expected to be doing their own film study on Huddle, on their laptops, their iPods, iPads, whatever it is. And they need to make sure that they're putting in the work themselves behind the scenes when we're not there to direct it, so they're preparing for the opponent. From a coaching perspective, we come in Sunday mornings and we're breaking down the previous game. We're game planning for the previous opponent. So that's anywhere from a 7 to 10 hour day of putting in the work to try to get the game plan in. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the heavier work days as we prep for the week, where we're still breaking down film and trying to develop different game plans for a third down situation, the red zone, whatever game element we want to do, our special teams game plans. And you're constantly watching film, practicing it, reevaluating what you're doing. We're watching the film after practice when we get off the field. We're trying to recruit as well in the evenings during the year. So it's a busy workload. When we get to Thursday and Friday, those tend to be lighter practices. Thursday is our walkthrough. Friday is, we call it a fast Friday. It's an up-tempo practice, minimal contact. So it's a lighter, less physically demanding for the players, so that now when we play on Saturday, our bodies are ready. The challenging thing about being a head coach is getting 100 people to do what some of them don't want to do, but to buy into the one purpose of winning games and developing his people. As I said earlier, we're always battling egos. It's human nature that you want to be the guy that's scoring the touchdowns and making the big play on defense and getting that glory. But not everybody can play that role, and not everybody's going to play that same role week to week. So how do we convince 90 people to buy into the idea of a role, being a role player, whether it's a large role or a smaller role in the team, and showing up every day to do that work, 5 days, grueling days of practice, and then for that one day, Saturday, where you might only have a handful of plays, but you got to make those the best plays you can, and you're going to be there for your team that whole game and that whole week. So, team building and getting that single-eyed structure, it can be difficult, but it's fun too. And that's the reward. The reward is when you see these players who develop and buy in and you see their success. I don't coach for me to win. I coach to watch the players, the light bulb clicks and they're executing a play they've struggled with. They're executing a technique they're struggling with. They've developed, from as freshmen to seniors, and they've grown as men, and they're great people to be around, and they're going to be successful in life. I love when our alumni come back and I hear about what they're doing now. And, they talk about the good memories they have in the program. And our seniors, who we just recognized last week for senior day here in the last home game. And, some of those guys have been around for 5 years because of the COVID year. They had an extra year of eligibility. So to think of those guys as freshmen and, we tried to develop them, right? And the issues we might have had with them over those 5 years. And now you see the growth. That's very rewarding to me.
What has football meant to you over the years?
Some of the things we've touched about are really what football is all about and why it's so important to me. The bonds you make with your teammates, the influence that coaches have had on me, the opportunity to pay that forward and influence the young men we have now in the program and will continue to have and develop them as men. That has been a rewarding experience for me as receiving it when I was a player, and now getting to help mold the guys we have here. From an athletic perspective, love the game. Love the game, the strategy of the game, the physicality of the game as a former lineman, right? I think it's a very unique sport, where you can go out and hit people and be physical and run and throw the ball 50 yards downfield and be explosive and finesse it a little bit, and all of those different things that come from a strategy perspective of the game makes it very fun.
What has a life lesson a coach taught you that stayed with you your entire life?
Wow, I got to think back on that one for a minute. I think back to high school, one of our assistant coaches at the time, who was also a teacher, so I had him when I was in middle school in 7th grade, and then he moved up to the high school, so I had him for like 6 years straight. And he's somebody I still stay in touch with a little bit. And he had a sign in his classroom, and it was PRIDE. It was an acronym: Personal Responsibility in Daily Endeavors. And he would talk about that in the field as well. And I think that's a philosophy I try to keep in mind, that I have to own whatever I'm doing. And whether that's coaching, whether that's being a husband, whether that is, helping a player navigate academics, whether that is going out and cleaning the locker room, you have to own whatever you do. And you're only going to be successful if you can accept that ownership and work at whatever it is you're trying to accomplish with great energy and great responsibility. And that's the only way we're going to be successful in life, let alone football. So that's a message that was I still remember that sign. I can picture it right now, you know, and that's something I try to keep in mind.
Awesome. So, Coach, I want to thank you again for coming on Forward Progress. We always wrap up each show with, I like the phrase forward progress. Obviously, we know it's from football, but I like to put it out there in terms of life as well. So if you could give a piece of advice, literally it doesn't have to be an athlete, a coach, could be anybody, but a piece of advice to how they can make forward progress in their lives, what a piece of advice would you give them?
Do the work. Do the work. Because I tell this to my players all the time, nobody's going to give us anything. You have to go out there and earn it. And you only do that by doing the work. And success might come quickly from that. Success could come way down the road from that. But you're going to get there. And I think it's easy for people to walk away and quit things these days. But stick with it. Builds perseverance, builds grit. And those are key characteristics that can help you in life. So I always stress to my players, my coaches, do the work. It'll pay off.